What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Fast. Today, let's get started with Francis Ngannou gives his take on potential Jon Jones super fight. Jon Jones was impressive in his return to the octagon after a 20-month hiatus caused by tearing the tendon connecting his pectoral muscle to the bone. Francis Ngannou, who many believed would be the fighter to welcome Jones to the weight class, recently shared that they both want the matchup. As he said, he only talks about the UFC business. I think we're all about that. He's in the promotion deal, and I'm in the promotion deal. And if those two promotions come along and can figure out a way, us talking about established champions or not would not help. I think for right now, his only options are in his roster, and my options are in my roster. That's just how it is. It's not what we want or would like to have. It doesn't matter much, but the reality is, we both know we both want this fight for sure. And it would be a good fight for us. There's more to this, like legacy and everything. I mean, I can finish my career at some point, but it will always be great to know that, okay, you faced that guy who is the best in the sport to ever do the sport. Belal Muhammad makes eye-opening remark on Garry replacing him against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Belal Muhammad recently expressed his optimism over the upcoming Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Garry matchup at UFC 310. Muhammad claimed that since the two had previously called out one another and would both be risking their unbeaten status, this fight made a lot of sense. During a recent episode of the Anik and Florian podcast, Jason Anik spoke to Muhammad and asked about his thoughts on the Rakhmonov versus Garry matchup. I'm happy that there was no interim belt. I don't think it was needed. But yeah, I think the matchup makes a lot of sense, especially when you're looking at the division. Muhammad emphasized that because Rakhmonov and Garry are putting their undefeated records on the line, the contest will be exciting. It made more sense than Buckley and Garry. I think Shavkat and Garry, both undefeated, both guys are right there at the top, and they both called each other out before Ian said he wanted that fight before. But it makes a lot of sense, and I'm excited to see how it goes. Joaquin Buckley thinks UFC title fight is possible, with dominant showing over Colby Covington. Buckley and Covington are scheduled to headline UFC Tampa on December 14th. It'll be the final UFC fight of 2024, and Buckley plans on ending the year with a bang. Having a chance to get closer than ever to the top 5 welterweight rankings, Buckley is hoping to capitalize on his big opportunity. While Buckley wouldn't take the #1 spot with a win over Covington, he believes his exciting fighting style could be enough to secure a welterweight title fight. I really feel like it wouldn't be no argument once I go out there and put on a dominant performance on Colby Covington. It's just yet again, why not give me an opportunity to fight for the title? You know it's going to be fun to watch. Whether I win, lose, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's the entertainment business. So why not give me the chance and opportunity to fight for the belt? Buckley also told Lynch that he doesn't like leaving his fights in the hands of the judges. It's hard to contest that claim given that Buckley has scored 14 knockouts in his 20 pro MMA wins. He's also secured 5 total performance of the night bonuses. Coach Firas Zahabi doesn't think Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall will happen. MMA coach Firas Zahabi doesn't believe fight fans will ever see Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Jones is the UFC heavyweight champion, while Aspinall holds the interim gold. Jones has made it clear that he'd rather fight UFC light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira than Tom Aspinall. UFC CEO Dana White is against the idea of Jones versus Pereira. Zahabi has weighed in on the situation, and he doesn't believe a heavyweight title unification bout between Jones and Aspinall will come to fruition. I don't think Jon Jones is gonna fight Aspinall. There was a once upon a time where I thought he would and he could win, but I went over Aspinall's fights and I'm thinking, this is the man who can beat Jon Jones. At heavyweight, this is going to be a dangerous fight. Jon is not crazy. Jon is going to go down to fight Pereira, but I don't think the UFC gives him Pereira. I don't think so. He has to fight Aspinall or nothing. I don't think the UFC wants Jones to beat Alex Pereira. It's still unknown what Jones will do moving forward. If he insists on not fighting Aspinall, the UFC may strip Jones of his heavyweight gold. Jones has also said that he's at peace with his career and is willing to walk away at any time. Dana White reveals UFC and WWE didn't have a good relationship before TKO merger. The UFC and WWE may now share a home under the TKO banner, but things weren't always smooth between the two combat sports giants. Following their merger under the WME Group, which brought them together as a single entity listed on the New York Stock Exchange, UFC CEO Dana White opened up about their rocky history. In an interview, White was asked what his experience has been like working closely with the WWE and being part of a listed company. The UFC CEO claimed that while he was not that keen about going into a public company, as that didn't seem like a fun idea to him, it has been a surprisingly great experience. I do what I do, they do what they do at the WWE, and Ari does his thing. We have a good working relationship between us and the WWE, which we did not have before TKO. The UFC was acquired by the WME IMG Group in 2016 for a whopping $4 billion. 7 years later, the group acquired the WWE for a whopping $9 billion, and then merged the two promotions to create a live combat sports behemoth valued at over $20 billion. Since the merger, superstars from both companies have been seen at each other's respective events. Bellator champion Patricio Freire criticizes PFL for lack of fights post-merger. Patricio is the reigning Bellator featherweight champion. Frustration looms with the title holder, however, as he hasn't fought since March. Patricio, like many other Bellator fighters, have grown tired of waiting for fights since the acquisition by PFL. Patricio has now taken to social media to share his gripes publicly. I haven't fought since March. I wanted to do 3 fights this year, but I was told I would have to wait until December 31st, and I found out online that my opponent would be fighting someone else. Then they had a replacement, I bring people over, spend more money with the camp, and there's no fight. They said things didn't work out with Japan and that it wasn't their fault. Okay, so why don't you stage a show somewhere else? What kind of promotion can't give fighters at least 2 fights a year? Some haven't even fought this year. I am very worried about the future of Bellator and MMA in general. I feel very sorry for all the fighters who didn't even get to fight this year or were cut because they just don't make shows or think they're expensive, and all the fighters who were forced to take pay cuts. Khamzat Chimaev reflects on his mother's compassion after he knocked out an opponent. Khamzat Chimaev is known for his ruthless dominance inside the cage, but this story about a phone call with his mom after his knockout win over Ikram Aliskerov reveals a different side of the sport. While many would expect a moment of celebration, Chimaev shared that his mother's reaction caught him off guard. Boers used his usual hunting tactics from the get-go, and after a few dominant displays of grappling, planted a solid uppercut to Aliskerov's chin, knocking him out cold. Chimaev called his mom after the fight, as he always does, and realized that she was concerned for his opponent and his family instead. The middleweight title contender further revealed that she broke down in tears thinking about Aliskerov's mother. She watched it and she started crying. I am like, why are you crying? I won. She yells, he has a mom too. Do you know what she is going through? If I saw you like that, I would not be able to cope. Jon Jones in negotiations with UFC over return. It would seem that fans haven't seen the last of the man, widely considered the greatest of all time inside the octagon, judging by UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones's latest remarks. During a recent interview, Jones provided an update on his status post-UFC 309, revealing that talks are underway with the promotion. So right now, the UFC and I, we're in negotiations, we're in talks to see what happens next. I'm back in the gym, I'm training, I feel really great. The team's support, they're right behind me, and we'll just be ready for whatever opportunity comes our way. There is a figure in mind, but I'm not going to discuss that publicly. I will be competing in 2025 more than likely. While Jones has stayed steadfast in rejecting the possibility of unifying the heavyweight titles versus Aspinall next, that would appear to still be the most desired matchup among the MMA masses for the 37-year-old. Whether or not the UFC can do what is needed to convince Jones, who has previously sat on the sidelines while criticizing the promotion's failure to meet his financial demands, remains to be seen.